NASA, the very symbol of science and our ambition to reach the stars, is facing the greatest challenge in its modern history.
The White House has just announced a plan to cancel over 40 space missions, including spacecraft already built, launched, and making discoveries as part of a devastating 47% cut to NASA science.
A new budget proposal from the administration is being called an extinction-level event for the agency. If passed, NASA's budget will be slashed by nearly 25%. The number may sound abstract, but in the world of space exploration, it's the line between evolution and regression. Analysts warn this level of cuts would suspend dozens of programs, place over 40 missions at risk of cancellation, and could force a third of NASA's staff out of their jobs, a layoff unprecedented in its 60-year history. The impact of this crisis goes far beyond the numbers. It threatens to shatter the international community's faith in America's scientific leadership. For decades, NASA has been more than a space agency. It has been a global icon of intellect, collaboration, and human vision. As its budget is cut to the bone, the vacuum it leaves could be filled rapidly not by scientists, but by commercial corporations or even the military. This raises a monumental question. Will the future of the cosmos be guided by scientists, or dictated by contracts and economic interests? Since 1958, NASA has been the pride of America. It put the first humans on the moon, expanded our understanding of Mars, and built the International Space Station, the largest collaborative scientific project in human history. However, in May 2025, the current administration unveiled its budget plan for the 2026 fiscal year, proposing the largest cuts ever seen. The proposal would shrink NASA's budget to $18.8 billion, its lowest level since the early 1960s, when the United States was locked in a space race with the Soviet Union. According to the White House, the move aims to focus resources on returning Americans to the moon before China and preparing for missions to Mars. Over $7 billion is allocated specifically for lunar projects, with another $1 billion for Mars. But behind the slogans of efficiency and prioritization lies a cold, hard truth: nearly every other department at NASA is being sacrificed, with the exception of the human spaceflight program. All other fields face devastating cuts. The most painful blow lands on the Science Mission Directorate (SMD), the division that operates the very telescopes and probes that made NASA's name. Its budget is being cut by 47%. The SMD is the scientific heart of NASA, responsible for triumphs like the Hubble and James Webb telescopes, the Perseverance rover, and the NEO Surveyor mission, which defends Earth from asteroids. Cutting its funding is like draining the blood from a living body. Furthermore, the loss of funding will trigger a massive brain drain, as thousands of scientists and engineers may leave NASA for the private sector. Once this workforce disbands, rebuilding it will be nearly impossible. NASA stands to lose not only its people, but its institutional knowledge, the priceless experience accumulated over generations, which exists in no textbook. The phrase 41 canceled missions sounds clinical, but behind it lie decades of effort, thousands of people, and countless unanswered scientific questions. Among the threats is New Horizons, the spacecraft that traveled for nearly 20 years to send back the first ever images of Pluto and the Kuiper Belt pictures that changed how we see the edge of our solar system. The spacecraft is still fully operational, yet it could be shut down simply due to a line item in a budget. Juno, currently studying Jupiter, has delivered invaluable data on the gas giant's immense magnetic field and ferocious polar storms. If Juno is terminated, humanity will lose the chance to better understand the largest planet in our solar system, a key to understanding how all other planets formed. MAVEN and Mars Odyssey, two pillars of the Mars exploration program, are also on the chopping block. MAVEN is decoding how Mars lost its atmosphere over time, while Odyssey serves as the critical communications relay for rovers on the surface. If both are lost, Operating missions on the Red Planet will become incredibly difficult. Even the newest and most innovative projects are not safe. OSIRIS-APEX, which just successfully returned a sample from the asteroid Bennu, was slated for a new mission to study Apophis, an asteroid that will skim past Earth in 2029. But this mission could be cancelled before it even begins. Veritas and Da Vinci, two sister missions to explore Venus, could help us understand why that planet became a greenhouse hell. If they are cut, that mystery will be shelved for another generation. And finally, there is the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, hailed as the successor to Hubble and Webb, poised to unlock a new era in the study of dark energy and exoplanets. Canceling Roman is like turning off the lights in the middle of a scientific renaissance. What makes this truly tragic is that the majority of the costs for these missions have already been spent during their development. Annual operations cost only a fraction of that, yet the data they return is priceless. Cutting them now is like a farmer destroying a field of crops just as they are beginning to ripen. It's a waste not only of money, but of knowledge, effort, and the dedication of thousands of people. After detailing the scientific missions at risk, we return to the question, where is the prioritized funding actually going? The answer is Artemis, the program intended to be humanity's next giant leap on the moon. Artemis was once seen as a symbol of long-term vision, not just to return to the moon, but to build a sustainable presence that would pave the way to Mars. Its architecture consists of three core components: the Space Launch System SLS rocket for heavy lift, the Orion crew capsule, and the Gateway, a lunar orbiting station to serve as a staging point for deeper missions. However, the 2026 budget proposal cancels the entire Artemis roadmap beyond 2027. This means that after Artemis III, the first crewed landing, all subsequent elements, like the Gateway and missions Artemis IV, V, and VI, are eliminated. The program is being severed just as it reaches its goal, like climbing halfway up a mountain and then throwing away your rope. This transforms Artemis from what was defined as the dawn of a new era of lunar sustainability into a repeat of Apollo of flags and footprints. One-and-done mission. This contradiction has left the scientific community stunned. How can a nation declare its goal is to beat China while simultaneously dismantling its own long-term infrastructure? Artemis is not just a single flight, it's a strategic architecture. The Gateway was designed to test technologies for in-space refueling, long-duration space medicine, and international modules, all essential for a journey to Mars. Scrapping it means the US would lose at least a decade rebuilding a similar system. The ripple effects are even more severe. International partners like the ESA, Japan, and Canada have already invested billions in Gateway components, such as the Canadarm3 robotic arm and the ESPRIT telecommunications module. If Artemis is curtailed, this entire chain of collaboration will shatter, leaving behind a trail of hardware that never flew. Many experts are calling this a breach of trust, something far harder to repair than financial losses. In short, if Chapter 3 was the story of small missions being sacrificed, Chapter 4 is the tragedy of a grand vision being cut off at the knees. NASA isn't just losing its spacecraft, it's losing its future. As NASA is forced to retreat, the private sector is surging forward. Elon Musk's SpaceX is the prime example. Its 2025 revenue is projected to exceed $15.5 billion, nearly 82% of NASA's proposed budget. The company commands the Falcon 9 Falcon Heavy, and most importantly, Starship, a colossal vessel designed to carry hundreds of people to Mars. Meanwhile, its Starlink satellite network, blanketing the globe, has transformed SpaceX from a rocket company into a space infrastructure empire. And it's not just Musk. Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin and the United Launch Alliance are also securing lucrative contracts, especially from the US Space Force. SpaceX has even developed a military version of Starlink, called Starshield, to provide specialized services to the Department of Defense. This rise is creating a new era where private companies are not just supporting NASA, but are becoming the leaders in certain domains. However, Behind the spectacular achievements lie unpredictable challenges. First, private companies have no obligation to pursue pure science. They chase profit, contracts, and speed, with NASA cutting back on basic research. No private entity will spend money to answer questions like, what is the origin of dark energy, or did Venus once have oceans? Those questions don't generate dividends. Second, aggressive privatization carries the risk of militarization. When corporate satellite infrastructure is used for national defense, space, once a global commons, could become the next battlefield. This provokes a strong reaction from other nations, particularly China and Russia, fueling a military space race instead of a scientific one. Many scientists compare NASA to a public lighthouse, illuminating the way for all humankind. While private companies are commercial ships, fast, agile, but sailing only where there is profit. If the lighthouse goes dark, the ships may still sail, but their direction will be arbitrary. The private sector is a necessary partner, but it cannot be a replacement for NASA. When knowledge becomes a commodity, discovery loses its meaning. The good news is this: the proposed budget cut is not the final word. The U.S. Congress is in the midst of fierce debate, and many lawmakers have voiced their opposition. In a recent hearing, Senator Chris Van Hollen stated bluntly, "We will not let these cuts devastate NASA's science." In a unified front, all living former heads of NASA's Science Directorate co-signed a letter to Congress, warning that the new budget would trade America's global leadership for short-term political wins. But time is running out. While the United States is mired in debate, China and India are accelerating. China is executing its Chang'e program at a breathtaking pace. It has landed on the far side of the moon, successfully returned samples, and is building the International Lunar Research Station (ILRS). Its official goal to land humans on the moon by 2030. Looking further, it has set its sights on Mars for 2045, a target that not even NASA has dared to set a date for. Meanwhile, India is emerging as the new phenomenon of space. The Chandrayaan-3 mission made it the first nation to land near the lunar South Pole, a region believed to hold water ice. Its Aditya L1 probe is observing the Sun. And Gaganyaan, its human spaceflight program, is expected to conduct its first test flight in 2025. They have even announced plans to build their own space station by 2028. Everything is being executed quickly, efficiently, and cost-effectively, a lesson even the US could learn from. If NASA fails to maintain its leadership role, the space race won't stop. It will just have a new flag bearer. And when that happens, the rules of the game in space, from resource mining and orbital management to international cooperation, could be rewritten by other nations. The Artemis Accords, initiated by the US to establish norms for cooperation, will lose their value if the US itself no longer has the capability to lead. This is a watershed moment. Either the US maintains its pioneering role, or it cedes the future to new powers. The 21st century space race is not just about technology. It's a contest of ideologies and a battle to define the future. On one side is a model of open, collaborative science. On the other, power-driven exploration. The question for all of humanity is, who do we want space to belong to? The US government has until October 1st to decide the future of NASA. The budget bill must be passed by both the House and the Senate before the president can sign it into law. Until then, everything hangs in the balance. If Congress approves the cuts, NASA will enter a lost decade. Dozens of projects will be terminated. Thousands of scientists will be forced to leave. And the trust of international partners will be broken. Meanwhile, China and India will continue to expand their influence, turning America's absence into their opportunity. Conversely, if Congress rejects the cuts and preserves the science budget, NASA can regain its momentum, partnering with the private sector to both save costs and sustain its mission of discovery. Experts stress that funding NASA is not an expense. It is one of the highest yield investments a nation can make. Every dollar invested in NASA returns between $7 and $10 in technological value to the economy. From lightweight materials and advanced sensors to AI and space medicine. But more than that, it nurtures the belief that humanity is still moving forward, still pushing the boundaries of knowledge. NASA doesn't just launch rockets or photograph galaxies. It is a symbol of human intellect, of international cooperation, and of our capacity to dare to ask the biggest questions. Where did we come from? And where are we going? Keeping NASA strong isn't just about preserving America's standing. It's about protecting the flame of discovery for all humankind. Perhaps for the first time in history, the future of NASA and of space exploration itself doesn't lie in the hands of astronauts, but in the hands of an audience like you. Every view, every comment, every share is a signal that people still care about the stars. Because when silence falls over the mission control rooms, the only thing that can keep the fire of exploration burning is our voice. So, what do you think? Is it worth it for humanity to continue investing in understanding the universe, or should we stop? And save for the problems of today? Let me know in the comments, because you are deciding where this story goes next.